Statement of Prime Minister the Honourable Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, SC, MP, to the House of Representatives on the implementation of salary adjustments and payment of outstanding arrears to employees of the National Insurance Board, Friday, September 12, 2025. Mr. Speaker, honourable members of this House, and by extension, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I rise today to address a matter that speaks to the very foundation of justice, fairness, and human dignity, a matter that embodies the core of our democracy, the heart of our nation, and the workers who are its lifeblood and strength. The NIBTT and PSA agreement at hand. For more than a decade, employees of the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago have been waiting in frustration and deprivation for what was lawfully theirs. A legally binding collective agreement entered into between the Public Services Association of Trinidad and Tobago, PSA, and the NIBTT covered the period January 1, 2014 to December 31, 2016. That agreement was solemnly settled, duly signed, and lawfully registered, binding on all parties with the full force of law. Its terms were unambiguous, its obligations undeniable, its enforcement inescapable. And yet, in an egregious and unconscionable act of political obstruction, its benefits were deliberately withheld from the very workers it was designed to protect. The former PNM government's refusal to honor this agreement. Mr. Speaker, despite the unambiguous and binding nature of that agreement, the former PNM administration deliberately blocked the NIBTT from honoring its obligations to workers. In doing so, they denied 600 current employees and 350 past employees their lawful entitlements for almost 6 years, effectively withholding salary increases that had been due for over 12 years. They placed political interference above the law, sacrificed justice on the altar of expediency, and in the process robbed thousands of citizens of their rightful salary adjustments and arrears. Devastating consequences for ordinary citizens. The human cost was devastating. Almost 6 years of denial, 6 years of frustration, and 6 years of prolonged litigation. For 6 long years, fathers and mothers, clerks and officers, men and women who gave their lives to national service, were forced to endure without their just due. Their children bore the weight as well, watching their parents struggle, as families sacrifice meals, opportunities, and peace of mind, all because justice was cruelly denied. This was no accident. It was the result of deliberate and egregious political interference. The PNM chose politics over people, sacrificing justice to protect their narrow interests and reducing citizens to collateral damage in reckless political games. Children were left to suffer the consequences, watching opportunities slip away, carrying the scars of deprivation caused not by misfortune, but by the former PNM government's callous abuse of power. This was not governance. It was cruelty disguised as policy, inflicting needless suffering on ordinary families across our nation. PNM government's dereliction of duty. Mr. Speaker, this was not simply an administrative lapse. It was a grave moral failure. It was a betrayal of workers, and worse, a willful dereliction of duty to the citizens of this nation. The PNM's political interference was not only unprincipled and reckless, it was petty, spiteful, and rooted in partisan abuse of power. That regime abandoned the most sacred responsibility of governance, to uphold the law, to protect the rights of its people, and to serve with integrity. Instead, they weaponized the machinery of the state to punish workers, placing politics above people and condemning hundreds of families, including their children, to years of needless suffering. Entire communities were forced to bear the cost of arrogance, vindictiveness, and political spite masquerading as policy. Prime Minister KPB government's restoration of workers' rights. Today, my government has acted decisively to correct this grave injustice and to restore what was denied for far too long. In doing so, we are reinstating the dignity of workers, reaffirming their humanity, and upholding the rule of law as the bedrock of our democracy. This action is not only about back pay and arrears. It is about honoring lawful agreements, defending fundamental rights, and proving that in a just democracy, no citizen is ever beneath the protection of the law or beyond the reach of fairness. Accordingly, Cabinet has directed the NIBTT to implement the agreed salary adjustments with immediate effect and facilitate the full and prompt payment of all outstanding arrears to affected employees without delay. This is not merely the execution of a contract. This is the restoration of justice. It is the fulfillment of our workers' agenda. And it is the delivery of another campaign promise, another promise kept to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. A new era of governance. Mr. Speaker, let the contrast be unmistakable. The PNM regime blocked justice. This UNC government restores it. The PNM regime denied workers their lawful entitlements. This UNC government delivers them. This decision reflects my government's philosophy of inclusive and collaborative governance and our unwavering commitment to advancing the dignity and well-being of workers in every sector. It marks the beginning of a new era of governance, one in which workers will never again be bargaining chips or collateral damage in political games, but respected as partners in national development. Praise for PSA and NIT workers. Mr. Speaker, I commend the PSA and the employees of the NIBTT for their patience, their resilience, and their steadfast faith that justice would prevail. They endured years of uncertainty and despair, but today, their perseverance has been vindicated. I am deeply grateful for their patience and their faith, qualities that reflect not only endurance, but true patriotism. Their service to this nation, even in the face of injustice, speaks to a devotion that strengthens our democracy. For workers are not merely employees, they are the heart and soul of our nation, the bedrock of our democracy. They sustain our economy. They uphold our communities, and they embody the spirit of service and sacrifice upon which this nation was built. Under my leadership, I pledge that they will always be justly respected, fairly rewarded, and never again treated as expendable. A new era for workers' rights. Mr. Speaker, let me assure this honorable House and the national community, this is not an isolated measure. It is the first step in a comprehensive program to address and settle outstanding negotiations across the public service and state sector. We made a promise to the people, and today, we prove once again that promises made are promises kept. Never forget PNM's abuse of citizens. Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago must never forget. The former PNM regime's obstruction was not only a betrayal of workers, it was a betrayal of citizens, a dereliction of duty to the nation itself. For 10 years, they placed politics above people, abandoning their responsibility and leaving ordinary families to pay the price of their neglect. In contrast, this government has demonstrated strength, vision, and resolve. Conclusion. Mr. Speaker, my government is restoring justice, rebuilding trust, and setting a new standard of governance. One where workers are never pawns in partisan games, but permanent partners in national progress. One where government is measured not by petty spite or partisan obstruction, but by its fidelity to the rule of law, its defense of democracy, and the justice it delivers to its people. This is governance anchored in fairness, accountability, and delivery. It is about building a nation where every citizen can see and feel the results of sound policy, in their salaries, in their dignity, in their communities, and in the opportunities secured for their children and their generations to come. This is our vision, a stronger, fairer, and more prosperous Trinidad and Tobago. And this is my solemn pledge to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Under my leadership, we will always be a nation where rights are respected, democracy is upheld, and justice is delivered. A country where progress is shared with every section of society, seen in the dignity of work, felt in the strength of families, and lived in the daily hope of every community across the length and breadth of our country. A nation where partisan gamesmanship and political abuse will never again be placed above the people, and where the true measure of our democracy will always be the welfare and dignity of all its citizens. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.